Welcome to Collection Advisor Live. I am your host, Joshua Flugel. I'm the editor-in-chief of Collection Advisor, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit of everything, a little bit of skip tracing, a little bit of compliance, and a little bit of everything else. We have everyone on board. We have Deborah, we have Ron, we have Sam. Why doesn't everyone just say hello to the crowd?
Hi, everybody.
Howdy, everybody. Glad to be here.
Without further ado, we are going to dive right in with Debra Ciskey. She is the Chief Compliance Officer of Wakefield & Associates, and she's going to be talking about what constitutes a deceptive practice. I'm going to leave it to you, Deborah.
Okay, thank you very much, Josh. Happy to be here this morning. Welcome, everybody. And I'm excited to try this new format. It's great. So what I did was looked at the consent agreements, the enforcement actions that the CFPB has published over the years, as well as some of the practices that we see being challenged in the courts as well by plaintiff counsel, things that they consider to be deceptive. And I put together a top 10 list. So we're going to do this kind of David Letterman style, and we'll see how it works. So number 10 deceptive practice. Misrepresenting acts that would be taken if the debt were referred to a debt collector or returned to the original client. So this came up in a CFPB consent action against a payday lender, and the payday lender was collecting its own debts, but still talking to people about, well, if we can't get this paid, then, we'll have to just turn you over to other folks where the consequences might be more stringent than what we would plan to do, and it's kind of put the fear into people of their debt going to a debt collector or a collection attorney. So misrepresenting acts that would be taken. I believe that in this case they really didn't intend to turn over the debts to anyone else anyway, so that was probably a secondary issue with that one. So that's number 10. Number 9, settlement of unreported debt with the misrepresentation that payment could improve the consumer's credit score when the debt is actually not reported to credit reporting agencies. So in this scenario, this was a bank, an enforcement action against a bank. And so the bank was not reporting these outstanding debts to credit reporting agencies, yet they were representing that if the consumer paid their debt, the credit score would improve. Now we know that if a debt isn't being reported to a credit reporting agency, then how could their credit score improve, because there wouldn't be any reporting that the debt had actually been paid. So that's a deceptive practice according to the CFPB. All right, number 8, representing that an out-of-statute debt is legally enforceable by filing a lawsuit to collect the debt or by offering to settle the debt without informing that the consumer is that the debt is not legally enforceable. So this was a consent agreement against a large debt collector, and in this case they were actually filing lawsuits on out-of-statute debt, which the courts would say and the CFPB would say this represents a deceptive practice because you really can't enforce that debt in court when it's out of statute. And in other instances they were offering settlements on this out-of-statute debt without informing the consumers that the debt was not legally enforceable. So these are considered material acts. They have an impact on the consumer's ability to make a good, sound, objective decision about what to do when they don't have all the facts that the debt collector has, for example, about the debt. All right, number 7. The representation that the remaining balance will be forgiven upon payment of a settlement, when in fact the consumer would be required to pay the remaining balance in order to open a new account or obtain services from the creditor. So this was in a consent agreement by the CFPB against a major bank. And so the bank was telling people that they could settle their debts for some percentage off the balance without telling them that they couldn't obtain new services, they couldn't have any new loans, they couldn't open a new account until the balance of that debt was paid. So they were actually misrepresenting the status of the debt by getting the consumer to pay a settlement and telling them that the debt would be forgiven when in all actuality it would not be forgiven. Right, number six. Failing to report credit disputes to credit reporting agencies and knowingly furnishing information to credit reporting agencies that is known to be false or cannot be substantiated. So in this case, this was another consent agreement against a major bank, and in this one, the bank was reporting the original delinquencies to the credit reporting agencies, but was not reporting disputes that came in. And so they were reporting false information to the banks. What they were doing when they got disputes was, rather than update the status of the debt to disputed to credit reporting agencies, they were just deleting the accounts. They weren't doing any investigation. They were just doing deletions. So the CFPB, while you and I know that consumers don't mind having accounts deleted from their credit report, that's usually what they want when they call us about accounts that are on their credit report. In this case, the CFPB felt that this was causing harm to consumers, and they should have reported the actual status of the debt to the credit reporting agencies rather than just deleting them from their credit. All right, that was number 6. Number 5. Charging a processing fee for expedited payment posting when the particular methods that would not occur a fee and that would post the next day, this information wasn't being given to consumers. Often this was done when it was not in the consumer's financial best interest to ensure same-day posting to the consumer's account. So let's talk about this a little bit. This was also a bank, a different bank than the one we were talking about before. And so they had consumers who were making payments on loans or past due accounts. And the consumer would call in to make payment, and the representatives would push these expedited payment methods on the consumer. You know, you can pay with a credit card or some other payment method, and these payment methods all would incur a fee to the consumer. They would tell the consumer that the benefit of making the payment in this way was that the payment would post immediately the same day. Well, that's fine. Consumers often want that, but sometimes it's not really financially necessary for that payment to post the same day or even the next day. It's not past due. And so they weren't giving the consumers the full information the consumers would need to make a good decision about whether to make a payment using a method that would cause a fee to the consumer when it wasn't necessary. So, you know, in the collection world, we can see how this could easily occur when we are incenting collectors to get their accounts collected before the month is over. Maybe it's the last day of the month and we're really pushing immediate payments. We have to remember that we can't use a deceptive practice like this one in order to get a consumer to pay when there really are no consequences to that consumer for not paying, making a payment that would post on the same day. So that's the example for that one. Okay, that was number 5. Number 4, making representations that are material to a consumer's decision about how to respond to a debt collector's collection efforts. So this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. So for example, debt collector's representation that it can prove up the validity of a debt when it cannot, providing false affidavits about the extent of its review of accounts prior to filing legal action, or representing that an attorney has reviewed a consumer's account when no such review has occurred. So this was in a consent agreement by a collection law against a collection law firm, and the CFPB felt that, you know, the statements that were made about the validity of the debt were false because no additional research had been done. It hadn't really been validated by the client. And it actually had been shown to be providing these false affidavits and false information related to the status of the account and representing that legal action might have occurred when it really hadn't yet. All right, number 3, deceptive practice. Not identifying the creditor properly by using a name that is not the legal name of the creditor. Now, this is a prominent issue that we're dealing with in the courts right now. There are a lot of plaintiffs' attorneys bringing lawsuits against debt collectors for not using the legal entity name of the creditor when they're attempting to collect the debt or even filing suit. So we know how this happens. We're collecting for our clients using the name that the client itself uses, that the consumer would recognize, but yet that's not the legally registered name of the creditor. And so these plaintiff attorneys are suing, saying that we're not identifying the creditor correctly. So this is really something that we need to look at as we collect for, you know, big clients that their legal entity name might be nothing at all similar or related to the name that we all know them by and that their customers know them by, but the attorneys are expecting that we should be identifying these creditors by their legal registered name. So there's the tip for you. All right, deceptive practice. Number 2, misrepresenting that legal action was either planned, imminent, or even underway. So this deceptive practice is a very a common one in the CFPB consent agreements. If you go to consumerfinance.gov and look through all the enforcement actions, you're going to see this one listed quite prevalently, especially in those actions in which the cases are brought against some of the law firms. So I think we can all see the implications of representing that legal action may be underway when it is not. Number 2, deceptive practice. And number 1 at the top of the list, threatening to take any action that is not intended to be taken, whether it's litigation, reporting the debt to credit reporting agencies, or even criminal prosecution. So this one also is a common deceptive practice that the CFPB has cited in its consent agreements against all kinds of parties, payday lenders, debt collectors, creditors, banks, you name it. It's in there, and so they're looking for any practice that they feel would tend to deceive a consumer or make the consumer make the wrong decision. So that's my top 10 list. Josh, do you have any questions?
All right, Deborah, thank you very much for that. Hope you all have your coffee ready because we're going to take any questions right now. It looks like we have a question here from Jerry. Jerry has a question about number 8. So go ahead and bring up number 8.
Go ahead.
Let you thumb through that.
Got it, number 8.
Gotcha. Okay, so wouldn't disclosing whether it is collectible be giving legal advice?
That's really a good question, and I suppose that it could be interpreted to be giving legal advice, but the CFPB has required several debt collection agencies that collect out of statute debt to disclose that the statute of limitations may have expired on that debt. So I realize it's a legal interpretation. It's hard even to calculate sometimes because we don't necessarily have all the information about payments that might have been made on the debt before it was turned over for collection. But the CFPB has required it of debt collectors that are not law firms. So while we might feel it is, and that's a good argument, the CFPB would disagree.
All right. Jerry, I hope that answered your question. We have another question here from James. What if we did not intend to deceive, such as in using the familiar name of the creditor?
That's a really great question. And from what I have read and from what I have seen that the CFPB has published and what they have said in their consent agreements, it seems like any innocent act that we may perform, whether it's innocent act that's unintentional, the CFPB is going to interpret that as an intentional act. So, we have the information available to us, for example, about what the actual name of the creditor is, who owns the entity that we're collecting for, that kind of thing. And so when you look at the complaints that they file in court before the consent agreements are published, you'll see that they make it appear that any unintentional act that we may feel is unintentional, they frame it as an intentional act. So, that's why I tell my collectors when we train, don't guess about any of the information we have in the consumer's file, because if you misrepresent something, even if you thought you were correct, it's going to be a problem. So we have, that's how they look at it. They look at everything as intentional.
Okay, excellent. And I'm seeing another question pop up here. If the consumer believes something about his account mistakenly, do you have to correct him? Like, we quit reporting to credit reporting, but a lot of people assume that we do report. Right.
Okay, that's a great question. And I would say that if a consumer expresses something to you that he believes that is a mistake, you should probably set the consumer right so that you aren't that kind of closes off that deceptive practice kind of accusation. For example, if the consumer says, well, I'm going to pay this before it hits my credit because I can't afford to have a bad mark on my credit, but you don't credit report, you might want to tell the consumer, well, I'm glad to know that you want to pay it. I wanted to let you know that this account isn't eligible for credit reporting, or we don't credit report for that client, or we aren't a data furnisher, and so let's work out the best payment plan that works for you. Just kind of dispel the mistaken information and move on to collecting the account.
Very good. And now we have a question from Scott. What about utilizing both legal and common, such as Verizon wireless services when utilizing the creditor name? Would you like
Okay.
to repeat the question?
No, I get the question. Is kind of like, is it okay for us to use the common and familiar name of a client when that might not be the actual corporate name of the company? So you could say, well, we're collecting for Verizon Incorporated, also known as Verizon Wireless, local service, whatever whatever the familiar name might be, so that you have fully identified the name of the client. These problems come up more often when a debt collector is seeking to sue a consumer to collect a debt, or in letters. And so I haven't really seen it as commonly in phone calls. However, be aware that sometimes consumers try to bait us into violating the FDCPA. And so if you get the inkling or the feeling that a consumer is setting you up to bait you into a violation, get very specific about the name of that client.
Okay, very good. It looks like we've gotten through most of the questions. So, Deborah, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that come in after the fact. Just send them to me and I'll get back to you.
That's right. Anyone who has Deborah's contact information, feel free to contact her after this webinar. If you have any questions for anyone, you don't have their contact information, contact me. You can reach me at Josh, spelled J-O-S-H, at collectionadvisor.com. I'll be happy to connect you to any of our panelists or relay any questions you might have after the fact. We always seem to have those brain flashes in the shower the next day, so we're going to be accommodating to such a situation. Our next person is a virtuoso at skip tracing. So everyone put on your skip tracing hat, because I know Ron Brown has. Ron Brown is the CEO and president of CSI Group, a speaker, an author, you name it, he's done it. Ron, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the primary sources of skip tracing?
Well, things have changed quite a bit in the tracking industry these days, and skip tracing isn't what it used to be. Today, we see a lot of cyber tracking, and cyber trackers must have data. They become data miners, and they don't want to assume anything. They don't want to be skip guessers. They want to be skip tracers. So 4 major sources of data. Where do we go to get the data? How do we know the data is good? Let's talk about that. I'll tell you one thing right off the bat. 100% of the people that you cannot or will not find, they will not pay you. That's one thing for certain. It's like rounding up cattle. If you can't get in the bush and find them, you're not going to take them to the marketplace. So where do we get them? We use what we call a waterfall technique, and that is to save money, to be economical, to try to get the most information the easiest way. The waterfall technique starts out with free data sites, and I'm going to give you some free data sites. If you don't find them there, and you will find a percentage of them there, you move into public record data sites. Where do we go for public record? Public records have always been available, but today it's much easier to get to them simply because of the internet. We don't find them there, and we will again find some. We move into social media data. This has become a great source for mining data, and we'll talk about some of those sites. And then finally, we'll pay. Where do we pay? Data brokers. Our ability to track has always paralleled our ability to communicate, and never in the history of man have we had the communication tools that we have today. So let's talk about some of this. Free data. Where do we go to get free data? I want to give you what's called a link site. There is no data at a link site, but it will link you to the sources where you can get the data. The first one that my people use and that I use quite a bit is called Black Book Online. The website is www.blackbookonline.info. A lot of information there, a lot of links. I would give you a cautionary. Some of the links that you link into are pay sites, but they will be indicated in green and usually have little dollar markings. You have to pay with a credit card, so you really don't have to worry about your tracers, your cyber trackers getting in there and spending your money unless they have your credit card number. Another one that we use quite a bit is Manhunt Seminars. That's a design that we put together several years back. Is not only for the collection and the repossession industry, but also law enforcement. A lot of information there, and it is www.manhunt-seminars.com. By the way, I would mention, I know a lot of you will be writing these down. I'll be happy to send you a PowerPoint presentation that has all this on it. Just contact Jeff after the program and ask him. Give me your email address. I'll email it out to you, or you can contact me directly if you have my email address. The next one we look at is called SAGAL, www.sagal.com/Ajax. Great site. A lot of information there, a lot of military information. Skip tracers, cyber trackers use this one religiously. And the last one is one of the best ones, and I like it. I use it quite a bit myself. It's called PI Mall, www.PIMall.com/NAIS/skiptrace.htm. There's a lot of other sources too for free data, acquired sources. Look at the original credit application. Get that credit application, look at it for red flags, look at it for data information. File notes and comments by people who have worked the file prior to you getting it. Relatives, references. A lot of this information can be obtained from third parties. Free information if you know how to extract it. And we teach a technique called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, where you use the language of the human mind to get people to give you information. Free data. A couple more sites, Anywho, which is www.anywho.com, AT&T Directory Assistance, Super Pages, www.superpages.com, switchboard.com, whitepages.com, and Yahoo has a people search, people@yahoo.com, www.people@yahoo.com. Also, get out of the box, free sources, church directories, great source of information. How do you get it? Go on the internet, go to a certain town where you think that your consumer might be, get the phone numbers for the churches, call the churches. They're tickled to death to send you out church directories, association directories, homeowner directories, military-based directories, professional group directories, union group directories, associations. All these people have directories. Learn to storehouse those directories. A lot of them can be you can hook up to them directly over the internet. They can be intercepted there. Learn to use those. So that's our free data. Now we start talking about public records, another source of free data. A lot of different ways to get into public records. Zaba Search, Vitarec, VITAREC, USA.gov, Census Finder, DirectGov, Job Search, Family Watchdog Search. All of these are searches that you can run that professional cyber trackers run. Again, I know I'm going through these fast. Josh limited me to 10 minutes, and it's hard for an old cowboy to talk for just 10 minutes. But I'll be happy to send these to you. BRB.com, Free Public Records, is one that we use quite a bit. Inmate Plus, if you're looking for someone who might be in the penitentiary, also there's BOP.gov that is very good. We use that quite a bit. Rootsweb.ancestry.com. Rootsweb is very good. Public records at searchsystems.com or searchsystems.net. And then just ancestry.com. Social media, free information, and people are putting information out there like crazy on social media. Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, PI Interest, Tumblr, Reddit, Kik, Periscope, SoundCloud, Tinder, WhatsApp. Those are some of the ones that we use. Also, there's professional sites out there. LinkedIn. A lot of professional people have their biographies on LinkedIn, a lot of information there. Beyond, AngelList, eFactor, Data.com, Gadball, Meetup, Network Professionals, Opportunity, Partner Up, and Rise. A lot of sites there. Again, public record, social media, all free. Now we get into data brokers and where you're going to actually pay for the information. We've talked about the free data sites, the public record data sites, the social media. Let's talk about data brokers. There is a big need for this, and we've created this industry over the last 10, 15 years. Smaller companies started up gathering data. They get it from different sources. They sell out to larger companies. A good example is Accurate, started up by Hank Asher. Hank sold it out to LexisNexis. And then, of course, Hank started up TLO. Sites that we use, and I don't endorse any of these, we use all of them. There is no golden bullet. So get ready, use them all, look for different ones. TLO.com, Accurate.com, TracersInfo.com, LocatePlus.com, IRB.com, DelPoint.com, Microbuilt.com. Those are some of the ones that we use. Pay sites. If you're going to buy information from a data broker, there's some things that you need to look for. Number one, what's the best fee structure for you? There's different fee structures. Some, there's no money down, no hit, no fee. We use a lot of those. And once again, this is back to a waterfall technique. We may go there first. Some have a flat monthly or annual fee, unlimited searches. If you're doing a lot of searches, that certainly would be a program you might want to look at. Some have a base fee. You pay a base fee for a certain amount of searches or a certain type of searches, and then there's money added on top of that. Find the one that best fits what you do, and then let's talk about the data for a minute. You want to find out how often is that data updated. How often will the data be updated? Is it fresh data? Is it stale data? What are the data sources? Where they're getting their information? And don't hesitate to ask them. The people we look for, a lot of them, their information is in subprime data banks. They don't go into First National Bank to borrow money. They go to the payday loan companies. They go to the buy here auto dealers. So that's where we want to gather our data from. Find out, and particularly in your geographic area, where's that information coming from? Support. If the system goes down, do they have good support? Most of the ones that I quoted you earlier mentioned TLO, Accurate, outstanding support, 24/7, 365. And last but not least, how easy is it to manipulate and massage? I have a lot of people tell me, hey, I like this particular database. I use it all the time. And then I have another person say, oh, I can't get any information out of that. It's just not there. It doesn't help me. So much of it has to do with the cyber tracker's ability to massage and manipulate that data. A classic example would be Facebook. I have people tell me, well, I look at Facebook and I can find my subject, but they're blocked. And of course, cyber tracking is read only. We can't ask to be their friends. We can't give them any false information. All we can do is read only, and they're blocked, so I don't get any information. That's not where you get your information anyway. A smart consumer, one who's really hiding, they'll put false information out there. Look at their friends. Look at what their friends say. How do you like your new job in New York City? How do you like working for? How's your new car running? How's your mom? Have you seen her lately and watched the reply? Yes, we were over at her house last Sunday for dinner. Now you know what city they're in. Massage, manipulate, mine that data, pull it out. That's the difference between a cyber tracker and a cyber guesser. My 10 minutes are about up. So any questions from anybody? And again, I'll be happy to send you a PowerPoint presentation with all these sites listed. And if any of you have any questions, don't ever hesitate to call me. Good luck, good hunting. And as we say, anything, anytime, any place, professionally. Give me a call. Any questions, Josh?
All right. Well, it looks like we have a couple brimming up right now. And just to reiterate what Ron said, because that was a wealth of information, be sure just to give us a quick call here at Collection Advisor, or you can give me a quick email, Josh, Josh, at collectionadvisor.com. I'd be happy to connect you to Ron or get you any sort of information you need. Okay, we have a few popping up right now. Okay, so we have one here from Jerry. And Jerry is asking, is there one site that specializes in place of employment info?
Workplace.com. It's a little pricey. You pay an annual fee. I think we pay somewhere around $100 annual fee, and then it's like $33, $35 for a hit. If they don't give you the information, or if it's bad information, they'll refund the money to you. That's the one that we use more than anything else. One of the best sources for for employment, though, we have found to be the social sites. Facebook. Look there at their friends and see if the friends give you some employment. How do you like working at? How's your new job at? Or a lot of time the consumer will show where they work. Also, there's patterns there where they check in. Always look at because there's more time at that particular time, and that was his job. That would be my place.com, or look at those social sites.
All right, perfect. And we have here Stella. She said she would love a list of all the sites. Stella, I'm going to keep your information right here. I'm going to write it down, and we are going to get you a list of all those sites. Okay, so don't worry, Stella. We have your back, or better yet, Ron has your back. Okay, Ron, I also have here another question that was emailed to me. So what should we expect to pay for data from a reliable source? We all need that perfect, reliable source. How much are we going to have to shell out to get that information?
Well, one thing I want you to remember, when you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Don't expect it to be cheap. There are sites, and so much of it depends on what you need. There's one we use, and when we're looking for phone numbers, it's 10 cents a phone number. No phone number, no charge. There's another site that we use, and as I mentioned, there is no golden bullet. There's not one site I can give you. But it can run from 10 cents. I think the maximum that we pay for a full search is about $7.50. And that is so much information, we have to have a investigator sit down and pull it out, extract the data. There's so much there. So I would tell you somewhere between 10 cents and $10. Somewhere in that range is what you're going to pay, depending on how much data you want and who you're getting it from.
All right, perfect. And Ron, I actually have a question for you. We have people contacting us here at the Collection Advisor offices all the time asking, I want to get into skip tracing. I've been doing it for a while. I feel I have the knack. So when they do that, what can they do? Where can they go to learn to be a professional tracer?
You know, ACA International has an outstanding skip tracing training program, kind of a basic and advanced. There's online seminars, some like what you put on here. Some of the other companies put on online seminars. And then find you a good tracer and just listen to them. Watch them. Watch the traits of a good tracer.
All right. Perfect. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Ron. You truly are the master skip tracer, and we always look forward to hearing from you. All right. So we're going to be moving right along here. If anyone has had a training program in their agency, I know we all have, or if you are a creditor and you want to teach your fellow employees how to collect on those delinquent invoices, you need to get the most out of that program. You can have all the programs you want, and it's not worth anything if you're not getting much out of it. Fortunately, we have Sam Eidson here. Sam, why don't you say hi?
Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Eidson. I'm currently the Director of Operations for Delta Outsource Group. And throughout the years, I've served in many roles from, originally a debt collector. I became a collection manager years ago. Moved into operations role, went into compliance for a few years, and now I'm back in operations. So I was going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about employee development. To me, if we want to grow our business, there's nothing more important than the employees we have. So it's probably the most important aspect of our job. So I'm going to talk a little bit about new hire training and ongoing training. With new hire training, we're really focusing on retention. It's so much more expensive. It's 100 times more expensive to rehire somebody or hire somebody off the streets than to really train and develop and appreciate the folks that you have. Not just that, when you bring somebody in, from another agency, their compliance may not be the same as us. We've got to kind of teach a old dog new tricks, and we all know how that can go. So once we bring somebody in a new hire class, we give them a tour of the building. We introduce them to key members of our team, whether it be management, support staff, ownership, and just make them feel welcome. Once we're done with the tour, throughout the week, we still encourage management and support staff to come in and visit the training class and introduce themselves, kind of tell them a little bit about their history in collections, what they currently do for Delta, and just kind of embrace our culture. We're big on in culture and in positive attitudes will succeed. That's our motto here, and we turn difficult circumstances into positive experiences, and that's what we do. We try and help change lives. It's not the old beating up consumers anymore, or making them feel like less of a person just to try and collect the debt. So our second phase after that is compliance with state and federal laws. Before any agent can even get on the phone, we require them to take a test for each of the categories, and they must pass with a minimum score of 90% before they can even get on the phone. That's just not, a Delta thing. That's client expectations. They want to make sure that our agents know what they're doing, and that they can protect their brand, not just our brand, but our client's brand as well. Let's see, after that, we go into internal policies and procedures. Once we train them and make sure that they understand how to do things the right way, the Delta way, we have them go in and acknowledge the policy and procedure through our compliance management system. From there, we go on to system training. We train them on a hard phone. Each desk has a hard phone where they can go in and make manual dials. We teach them how to navigate through our human call initiator dialer system. Our collection software, every place has, most places have different collection software. So we teach them how to navigate and properly go through the motions with our collection software. And then one of the most important parts of our job is talk-off training. They need to know how to provide the required disclosures. They need to make sure that they're progressing calls. I ask that, they demand the BIF on every single call. If you can't pay the BIF, try and get the BIF over a couple payments or time sell the account, get it to where, it's 6, 9, 12 months, 18 months, whatever the best possible arrangement is. Try and get a good faith down payment. That's going to help with your liquidation number. Once we've done that, we go over like other collection techniques. It's not always, we all know it's not always, what you say. Sometimes it's just how you say it. One thing that we do is role-playing sessions. And it's probably hard to see, but we've got one for the consumer sheet and we've got one for the collector sheet. And typically, the consumer sheet is handled by the manager or trainer. And then the collector obviously is the one that we're trying to train. And we see if they're asking all of the pertinent information. Is the person working? Are they full-time or part-time? Do they, have a spouse? Any dependents? Just kind of find out how they can pay and what they can pay, because if you don't get those type, of questions answered, you could be selling yourself short. And then after that, then we go into client-specific training. Proper identification. Each client has a different way they want the consumer to be properly identified, whether it be first and last name plus one piece of demographic information. We have some that even require first and last name and 3 parts of demographic information. Some of them require a different way of saying the 2-party consent, making sure that the other party knows that the calls are being recorded. We have a couple that require their own payment disclosure. Settlement parameters, each client that we have, and we have probably 40 active placing clients, each one of them have different settlement parameters. They all have different ways they want disputes and VOD requests handled. Fraud and ID theft, how is that handled? Things like that is what we really try and go over throughout the 5 phases of our new hire training class. But training just doesn't end after the new hire class. I've heard many times at other agencies, we just get thrown to the wolves, we don't get developed. They don't feel appreciated, So we really try and develop our employees and show them a future, and there's room for advancement. And we could all learn more, I don't know everything about collections or life or anything like that. So as long as you're open to training and development and you're coachable, you're going to be successful in this industry. I will tell you that one of the most fun practices we've done over the last couple of years is our group roundtable sessions. And in our group roundtable sessions, we'll typically bring 4 agents in a room. We'll get 2 veterans, we'll get 2 rookie collectors, and we'll go back and we'll listen to calls. And I'll tell you, when we first started doing it, we'd bring in, 1 team at a time. And throughout that period of walking back to the training class, you'd hear moaning and groaning and, oh, I don't want to do this. This isn't, fun. I already know everything about collections, because we all have those prima donna collectors that think they know it all, right? But by the time we got done with the session, everybody was excited and they were thanking us, and they're like, when are we going to do it again? And typically how it would work is we'd listen to, 1 call from each collector. Each collector would have their time to speak on that call and what they liked and provide feedback of things that they may do differently. And then the last collector to speak is the collector whose call we just listened to. Once that's complete, then the training manager would have an opportunity, or even myself. I like to sit into those too, because I think it's a lot of fun. And then, I would speak to, hey, I really liked what you did here. I may have done something a little bit different with this. And it really, it was a productive session each time we did it. Other sessions we do are side-by-side training. I feel like side-by-side training is more beneficial for like newer people. The problem with side-by-side sessions for veterans is they're not going to mess up or do things incorrectly while you're sitting with them, right? In most cases, they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's when you're sitting with them. And that's where maybe like a remote training session would be beneficial for, people who have been there for a while. But you'd be amazed, even sitting with the veteran collectors, how much they may have forgotten, or what kind of bad habits they may have gotten into, or, sometimes they'll take shortcuts, and it's costing them money. It's costing our clients money. It's costing us money. So spend time with your agents is probably the best advice I can give you there, no matter if they've been there for a week, 2 weeks, 2 years, 5 years, it doesn't matter. They all need development. Then we'll do, some call listening sessions with agents, and we'll allow them to evaluate the call. Typically, I'll sit there and listen on the call with them, and then I'll have them provide feedback of what they thought they could have done better. And in most cases, a lot of them don't like listening to themselves in the first place. They're like, oh man, I can't believe I sound so down. My tone of voice isn't good. I didn't progress the call. I didn't get fact-finding questions. I didn't get F&C. I didn't stress enough urgency. You'd be amazed what kind of benefits could come out of that. And then once you've found their strengths, you cater to those. And I hate to say it, but you almost exploit their strengths. It's not just for your benefit, it's for their benefit too. Are they a good post-date collector? If they are, put them on a post-date type portfolio. Are they a good liquidator? Put them on larger balances where they have the opportunity to liquidate. Are they a good skip tracer like Ron was talking about? If they're a good skip tracer, allow them to skip trace and find and do more manual work. But I typically don't allow, new people, especially people without experience, to skip trace because, hey, they could find the person all day long, but if they don't know how to talk off the account when they get them on the phone, it's kind of a waste of time and money. You have some agents that do better manually dialing. A lot of the older agents that have been in the business for a long time, before dialers were even around, including myself, you like to manual dial. You're slower at working, but when you do get a contact, you get a quality contact as opposed to, just getting quantity, which I think there needs to be a little bit of a mixture of both. But over the last 15 years, our industry has kind of created some dialer zombies where they just take the easy way out. Calls are just being dropped on them. They're getting 15 to 20 contacts per day. And they kind of lost, the collections 101, of digging in and finding people and getting them on the phone and collecting the money. And I can tell you in my experience, nothing's more satisfying than digging in and finding somebody and getting the money, and then you have your agents that, are dialer driven and that's okay. You need a mixture of everybody in order to make a successful business. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm here.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sam. That was really interesting, and it's always great to know how to get the most out of that training program and therefore really get the most out of your employees. So we have a couple questions so far. We're going to start with Scott. Scott is wondering if you have a collector who fails the compliance test, say with an 85%, do you retrain or do you cut them loose?
We would retrain. It's hard to find good people, and if they fail it 3 times, then a decision would need to be made. But we'll try and coach them up on the area that they missed on. And I mean, it's not like our tests are 100 questions. We're talking, anywhere between 12 to 15 questions, maybe 20 at max. So you should be able to train that person and get them, where they need to be in order to pass the test. But typically, I can tell you in my years of doing it, I've not come across somebody that's taken three tests and failed. But if it got to that point, probably have to make a decision.
All right. Very good, Scott. I hope that answered your question. And Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to follow up with that question. Let's say you have someone in and either A, they just failed that test miserably, or what is a telling sign that it's just not going to work out? You don't need to be spending any more of your resources on them. I've had that happen with navigating through the system. I mean, not everybody's great at working on a computer. I've had issues where people can't even clock in right, and it's kind of a case-by-case basis. We don't have a certain policy that says if you don't do it the right way, then we're terminating you. But if you get a pretty good idea whether somebody's sharp and savvy and can be quick on their feet, which is what you have to be in order to be a good collector, in my opinion. But to answer your question, if they've failed it 2 or 3 times and they're just not getting it and it's not sinking in, you just, you have to pull them in with HR and say, look, we apologize, but it just doesn't seem like this is the right fit for us. All right. Well, very good. And plus it's always good to know that you're not going to be wasting their time as well as yours. So I guess it's always good to be upfront in that situation. So good to know. All right. We have an emailed question that's come in. What kind of collection rules and regulation tests do you require? You've talked about that one that you give them, but what kind of collection rules are are there any other regulation tests?
There are. So there's a series of 5 tests that we require. We have FDCPA, we have TCPA, we have UDAP, we have data privacy and security, and we have GLBA. And they have to pass each one of those 90% or higher in order to move on to the next phase of, getting on the floor and, making phone calls. And that's a client requirement.
Very good. And we have one more here. It's from James. What do you expect when training proper file mechanics?
That's a good question. So I'm really a stickler when it comes to file mechanics. Are they calling all the phone numbers on file? In our system, you can mark numbers good, bad, unknown. So are they correctly dispositioning the call? Are they using, like hotkeys? Our system allows hotkeys to be used to where you can hit a hotkey just for a no answer, or a hotkey for, like a message left on an answering machine and things like that. Other than that, I want to make sure that when they're, talking and they're dialing, are they navigating through the system? Are you looking at the date info to see when the account was charged off? When was the last payment? Are you looking at the balance information to see how much of it may be interest or, other fees? Knowledge is power. I mean, we have miscellaneous extra boxes that may give like employer information or the hardship or what type of loan is it, if it's a signature loan or, whether it's a credit card. I mean, just as much knowledge as you can possibly get before the person answers the phone is what I want. I want them to navigate through the system. There's another thing that I see, agents do, even ones who have been here for a while or have been in the industry for a long time. If you go into one of our more info boxes and it's got an employer name, but you don't have an employer phone number, skip that employer name and call them at work, because I can tell you right now, if I had debt and I got a call at work, you're the first person that I'm going to pay. So just, work smart, clear and concise notes, proper use of time reminders, proper use of, hot statuses and things like that.
All right, Sam. Well, that's awesome to hear. And we're very glad that you were able to spend time with us and get us that information on training. Very useful. All right, everyone. Well, those of y'all who tuned in, thank you very much for taking your time with Collection Advisor Live. We really appreciate your patronage. And if you have any questions, as I said, feel free to give me an email at Josh, spelled Josh, at collectionadvisor.com.